Already very fascinating.
I wish it was fascinating enough.
You'll see why I want to put this on the drive.
Multiple gunshot wounds.
Wow, so he was murdered.
He was murdered. Apparently, the person who did the murder knew him. There was no forced entry. The door was closed when they exited the apartment. And at 2 or 3 in the morning, no one in the entire building hears a single gunshot.
Fascinating.
And Reverend Wright announces his death before he's ever actually officially declared dead.
Oh, really? Who is he, Nostradamus?
Apparently, he wasn't declared dead by the medical examiner until 12:10 p.m. on the 22nd, or the 23rd, excuse me, of December, and Reverend Wright announced it at the early morning service at Trinity United Christian Church.
Oh, I see what you mean now. Yeah, that's definitely scandal. Yeah.
There's some static somewhere.
Static?
Any ideas?
That's coming from you.
No, it's only when you talk. It's not when... Can you talk again, Larry?
So how are you?
Just Larry.
Hello. Okay,
Larry.
is it me?
Keep talking. You just got to...
Okay, I'm not sure. I'm moving my phone just to make sure because everything's plugged in over by the computer.
Yeah, I'm right in front of my modem, right in front of my, phone base. I don't hear anything.
Okay.
But I understand. I think also there's a lot of, they use satellites. So satellites have a way of shifting. And so maybe that's what it is.
M&N dropped ball on 9/11.
Yeah, they did.
So I'm pulling that up. YouTube.com. Okay, great. I've got you now.
And I updated it to have the right images.
Oh, which images do you want?
They're all there.
Oh, you mean like in the footages part?
Yeah, like the front page,
Okay, so I can...
That's like you. It has
Okay.
Has a little bit of everything in there.
Okay.
I would have sent you the original YouTube video, but it was hacked and deleted about 3 weeks ago.
Of what video?
My original YouTube video and account was hacked into with the emails about 3 weeks ago, and everything was deleted, the entire account, all the videos, everything.
Okay, so Larry, I've got you up right now. George?
You did a press conference?
Yeah, I did a press conference at the National Press Club.
Yeah, and you were there with your lawyer.
Yep.
And he was
ex-lawyer.
Right, and he was the gentleman in the kilt.
Yeah.
Excellent.
He was the one that insisted on wearing it even after I asked him not to.
It was something like an Ed Wood film. It's like, this lurid tale of Obama, and then the lawyer shows. It's like something out of William Burroughs. It had a next to it.
Well, Sibley is definitely an interesting character, and he is known around D.C. for walking around with the skirt on.
Is he Scottish?
Yes, he is.
Yeah, okay, then they can get away with that. No, really, because it's a national thing there.
Well, he even sent me a picture of the D.C. I guess D.C. has a large group of Scottish that are mail carriers for the Postal Service. And they actually deliver their routes in their kilts. So he sent me a picture of them, and he said, see, you thought I was the only crazy one in D.C.
And it's weird, too, when they say they're Scottish. It's like, what do you mean, you're only half Scot?
So which do you want mostly on you? Do you want 9/11 shaman guy there with the swastika?
Yeah, just that page is nice.
Okay. I can't really do the whole... You want me to do the whole page? I usually zoom in.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Just like zoom in on M&N drop the ball.
Yeah, okay. That's easiest if you guys go back and forth.
You have a swastika on that?
No, it's reversed. It's a comedy show.
Oh, okay.
I have a 9/11 shaman is the
Well,
comedy show.
it's not comedy for me, Larry. I'm about mantra and yantra equals tantra. They took a perfectly good, very valuable yantra, which is like a mantra, and they let a guy like Adolf Hitler run off with it, which is unacceptable. Fortunately, we have a lot of Muslims in the world that are not allowing that, but it's a revered symbol. Of course, John Gulino, in the persona of 9/11 shaman, is using it as satire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and now we have the rising sun or the rising horizon for change that is becoming almost as popular as the swastika.
What's that?
You mean the Obama campaign?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. He's ushering in a period of fascism.
He is ushering in the next U.S. Civil War if this continues. I mean, throwing media off of his plane again today because they don't feel that the reporters are as enthusiastic or believe or worship the candidate as much as he feels he needs to be. Something's not right here.
Well, he's definitely playing into a messianic mindset. He studied Karl Marx, he studied Friedrich Nietzsche, and he has a very clear, direct way of getting the grassroots of those who are disenfranchised in society, which are the anarchists, communists, socialists, the inner city people, and just getting them into this revolution. Their whole idea to change is a revolution. It's pitting one class against another, it's like the bourgeoisie.
Exactly, and yet he's accusing everybody else of playing class warfare and the race card. And this guy and Axelrod has been playing this stuff for months. David Axelrod is, I'm sorry, people talk about Karl Rove being the architect. I think people need to stop and take a very good look at David Axelrod and what he has accomplished. Because regardless of whether you agree with him or not, David Axelrod has ran a brilliant and a genius campaign.
For Obama?
Yes.
Yes. It's going to be as we can see, it's probably going to turn into a landslide.
I've already said that, and people tell me I'm wrong, and I hope I'm wrong because I don't want to. I mean, there's going to be this is going to be 2,000, 100-fold over, in legal challenges to this thing, between voter fraud, between Secretary of State saying, well, it's not our job. There's going to be more challenges in this election than I think anybody ever dreamed of in 2000.
Well, the thing is also we have the tax Bush cuts going to expire in 2010. So this supposed tax cut deal, a lot of Americans don't realize that these are not permanent tax cuts.
No, leave that. That's okay.
It's just a one-shot deal, and that's it. You're just they're going to get a little paycheck, and that's it.
Well, they don't. They don't also realize the fact that these rebate checks and these stimulus checks that they're getting, somebody has to pay for that. And the simple fact of the matter is these rebate checks come out of their taxes the following year. It's taxable income. People need to wake up and understand this.
Yeah, they're taxing the taxes. Literally taxing the taxes.
My concern is that freedom of speech in this country is fixing to be shut down. I mean, you've got people anyone that says anything about Barack Obama is attacked. Emails are hacked into, and people just braggingly and proudly post the contents of hacked email accounts all over the internet. The FBI does nothing. You have a gentleman who threatened a time and date specific murder of me, my mother, and my attorney on 3 different occasions through YouTube, threatening to murder me in Washington, D.C. when I went for this press conference. The FBI says that they identified the person, but the U.S. attorney refuses to press charges or turn over their identity to me or my attorney or my mother because, quote unquote, we did not feel that he intended to carry out the threat.
So how did you find out about the Obama, the sex scandal?
Actually, I was involved in the sex scandal with Barack Obama.
Oh, I thought it was your friend who died.
No. Donald Young actually was something that came to me last year after I had contacted the Obama campaign. Donald Young started making contact with me over a 4-month period on cell phone numbers that the only way he could have gotten them, and he made it clear at one point that he had gotten the numbers directly from Obama. I'd never met this guy. I never even knew who he was, and it wasn't until late March that I even realized who this person contacting me was. The very first contact he claimed to be from the Obama campaign.
Yeah.
But very shortly into the conversation, I knew that was not true because he had asked me why I did not ask the Obama campaign to acknowledge the sexual encounters between Barack and myself in '99.
So you know Barack Obama on a very intimate level.
On a very intimate and personal level, on 2 occasions, November 6th and 7th of 1999. And here's the interesting part. They do not deny it. They do not acknowledge it. They just simply allow Daily Kos and Democratic Underground and their surrogates and supporters to try to smear me. The first smear was, oh, well, you know, he couldn't have been in Chicago at that time, speaking of me, claiming that I was in a psychiatric hospital in Texas.
PC 1 gigabyte.
They pulled up...
Yes, they said that you weren't where you said you were.
Pics.
Yeah, they pull up records on another Larry Sinclair, who indeed was a psychiatric patient. They attack his family. They smear this person all over the internet, claiming it to be me.
You got that one dragged over?
Yeah. What else?
Okay.
You know, and yet Choice Hotels legal department confirms that I was in fact in the hotel in Chicago, in the Chicago area that I said I was on the days I said I
would pull it on
top.
top.
Have you ever thought of like making a porno film?
Yeah. And New York Times Ugly Obama.
They're doing with the Sarah Palin porn films. Have you ever thought of like selling your story and
This isn't a very
professionally done?
I am thinking about actually writing a book.
What do you want?
But as far as doing any type of porn, no.
No, not you personally. Like,
Okay, let's start. Okay.
Like, you know, to somebody to play, like...
All right, can you unplug that?
It doesn't have to be you. It doesn't have to be you, but it could be, like, sort of like that.
If I unplug it, doesn't it go away?
That would be interesting.
Let me just...
Who would do it?
Well, I'm
All right, but I thought you copied these, but all right, maybe you didn't copy them. Okay.
And see, that's the thing. People have accused me of trying to make money. I'm so far in the hole, you know, from even dealing with this, you know, between Biden's false arrest and paying attorneys in Delaware, all to have the stuff thrown out at the end talking about, oh, we were wrong. This is just getting ridiculous.
Are you facing any courts, any trials at this time? Or any?
No, I still have the Colorado issue that was outstanding even before this, and they had for 4 months told me that they were dismissing it. I got a phone call yesterday before I spoke with Paula, actually, from a newly assigned district attorney saying that they were not dismissing it, that they were proceeding. So I said, fine, I'll be more than happy to go to Colorado and deal with it. I don't run from it.
From now? Well, you don't have to tell us.
I'm in Minnesota.
Oh, okay, you're calling from Minnesota, Colorado.
Yeah, oh no, I haven't hidden. Believe me, I am definitely not hiding from anyone or anything.
How about that?
Okay, great. Well, you know, I don't know, we're not taping at this time.
Yeah, actually we are, but we haven't started the show formally. I thought I'd put that up on YouTube. Are you ready to start?
Yeah.
Okay. So, this is Paula Gloria welcoming you to Farther Down the Rabbit Hole. We're going to go very far down the rabbit hole today because we have on the line Larry Sinclair, who has allegations that Barack Obama may not be the candidate that we think he is. Welcome, Larry, to the show.
Thank you, Paula.
And also we have on the line John Gulino, who has the distinction of coining the phrase MNN, that is Manhattan Neighborhood Network, dropped the ball on 9/11 as he was in master control. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you for having me.
Now, Larry, just by way of introduction to you to my show is essentially about spirituality and politics. I'm kind of known for the expression mantra and yantra equals tantra, and tantra is about using spirituality to manifest, to create a better reality. I'm very interested in healing, and oftentimes really difficult problems, say sexual abuse or cancer on the body, is something that requires a very deep investigation and diagnosis into what the problem is. It's often not very pleasant, and oftentimes people say, for example, who want to be doctors because doctors are held in great esteem in society, when they actually come to actually dealing with sick people, the blood and the guts, the suffering, they may find that it's something that they don't enjoy. For myself, I do enjoy difficult situations because I have great faith in bringing light into what is very dark. So when I was pondering this show, because I don't want it to be just something that's going to break people's heart because Barack Obama has inspired a lot of people, I was thinking about what what makes a person get into so-called sexual deviance that they would then be culpable or, susceptible to being controlled, to being blackmailed. And as I thought about it, I thought, why does it seem to happen mostly to men, that they bring men down in this way? Of course, they bring women down in other ways when they're involved in these kinds of sexual arts. But it seems like the nature of a man's sex drive as opposed to a woman's sex drive is something that wants satisfaction fast, furious, and quick, oftentimes, more so than women. And it seems as though because of this, candidates are groomed specifically to be blackmailed. And so with this in mind, from what Webster Tarpley has told me, if Barack Obama is one step of a fascistic regime coming about, can we conduct this show in such a way that we have compassion for somebody who is embroiled in this type of net and look beyond the puppet and help to cut the strings that are controlling the puppet in the hopes that he can find his own divinity within? That's my hope, Larry.
You're hoping for a lot with Barack Obama.
Okay, I just have to express my platform.
I understand that. I wish that something like that would happen, because I think it would bring great relief for Barack Obama to come out from under all of the secrets.
Okay. Now,
are we here also with someone else?
Yes, I'm so sorry. I'm joined here on the set with Ugly George. So let me see which camera there.
Okay.
And Ugly George was the one who's famous. You say what you're famous for, and then I'll tell you how you introduced me to Larry. Really.
Yeah, okay. All right, I'm the guy that was ripped off in Ghostbusters with the silver suit and the backpack that you see right here. And Bill Murray walked up to me on the street after Ghostbusters had made $200 million, and he said, "Hey, Ugly George, we just passed $200 million, largely thanks to your silver suit and backpack. Thanks for the idea, kid." I said, "Bill, where's my cut?" He said, "See you around, kid," and he took off. Then, of course, Girls Gone Wild came along about how to pick up girls, and they made a big bundle, okay? So I'm the Larry Sinclair of cable TV, okay? I did what I had to do, made no money, got ripped off by everyone, derided, scorned. Larry, of course, would understand being derided and scorned, right?
Oh, most definitely.
Can you talk, George, about the area of healing? When you brought up Larry Sinclair's story at the ACAP meeting, what was the purpose of it?
Well, the story was, you like the word healing, I like the word lying liberal media, okay? And the liberal media has an agenda, and they've decided what the agenda is. And they've decided that since the American people are stupid and can't remember anything, they don't remember the President of the United States 4 years ago. And who was the President of the United States 4 years ago? Howard Dean. And why was Howard Dean the President? Because if you look in Time magazine, the New York Times, and anything else in the early days of the campaign in 2004, you saw an F word in front of Dean's name. You know what the F word was?
No.
Front runner. The front runner, Howard Dean, is measuring the White House for his bed, and the front-runner Howard Dean says this, and the front-runner Howard Dean pontificates on that. Now, since we at Time Magazine and the New York Times and the liberal media have decided to anoint Howard Dean as the next president, it is up to you, the stupid peasants of the United States, to fall into line. And we're having a primary in an unimportant, stupid state with a bunch of unliberal Ku Klux Klan people. The state is called Iowa. And since they're unliberal, neocons, conservative Christians, and they know nothing, they are going to fall into line and vote for Howard Dean.
Does this make sense to you, Larry?
Well, no, actually, a lot of it makes sense to exactly what he's saying, because it's exactly what has taken place with Barack Obama. Here is a perfectly unknown person. Actually, no one can look me in the face and tell me that they absolutely know anything about the man outside of what he himself and his campaign has put out for them to know. The guy can't even truly quote his own books which there's even a suggestion whether he ever wrote them, without referring to all about image. And the liberal media has definitely treated the American public as if they were so stupid that they need to be told who and what and when and why and how.
So now, John, I'd like you to make a few comments because you were asking Larry exactly how he knew Barack Obama. So maybe you could go back and forth on that now that we have the tapes rolling officially.
Yeah, our audience out there is really interested in your story, and they would like to hear a clear case of what happened and how Larry Sinclair came into the political forum.
Well, the clearest and simplest explanation to this is what I have said from the very beginning. I was in Chicago, arrived on November 3rd, left on November 8th of 1999. I was there for the basic training graduation of my godson from the Great Lakes Navy Training Facility, which is a suburb outside of Chicago. I was staying at the Gurney, Illinois Comfort Inn and Suites, which is also a suburb outside of Chicago. I had rented a limousine service for several days through Five-Star Limousine out of Waukegan. Myself, my godson's aunt and grandmother went out prior to his graduation, and then with my godson on the night of his graduation, which was Friday the 5th. My godson could not leave the base on the 6th because he had gotten his orders. I had spoken to the driver, whose name is Jagir Multani. Prior to Saturday the 6th, I had told him that I would still be using the service regardless of my godson being able to leave the base. I had asked him if he knew anyone from the Chicago area that knew the area, that would enjoy going out, showing me Chicago, drinking, and enjoy spending money. He said he did. On November 6th, I was picked up by the limo service. I was introduced to a gentleman by the name of Barach Obama at a Rush Street bar. When I got out of the limo, this gentleman, identified as Barack Obama, was standing next to the driver when he opened the door. We had drinks, a short period of time, casual conversation in a bar. I specifically had made the statement I could use a couple of lines to wake up. Senator Obama asked me if I was referring to cocaine, and I told him I was. He made a phone call. 5 minutes later, we're back in the limo. He's instructing the driver where to go. I give him $250 to purchase an 8-ball of coke. Approximately 30 minutes later, the car stops. Senator Obama gets out. 5 minutes later, he comes back to the car, hands me a packet of cocaine. I began to do a couple of lines off a CD tray that's rested on his left knee and start rubbing on his left thigh. He opens his pants. He becomes excited. I begin to perform oral sex on him. Shortly after that, this guy pulls out another packet out of his right pocket along with a glass cylinder pipe and commences to smoking crack cocaine. The whole evening in the limo lasts approximately 3.5, 4 hours at the most. The driver suggests that they take me back to my hotel first and that he would drop off Senator Obama at his car, which I had no problem with that at the time. The next day, a knock on my hotel room door surprises me to find Senator Obama standing in front of me in my hotel uninvited and unannounced, at which time Senator Obama proceeded to smoke crack cocaine on a second occasion in front of me, also offered me additional cocaine, and specifically requested to be orally serviced a second time. Now, I contacted the Obama campaign last September and asked the campaign to simply correct its official statement on the extent of his drug use. I had never asked the campaign to acknowledge the sexual encounters, never even brought it up to the campaign. I receive a phone call,
Excuse me, Larry.
Identifying himself as Mr. Young on a cell phone.
Larry.
Yes, ma'am.
Larry, we got to slow down. This is like a lot of information, okay? And this is going to Manhattan. I'm even hoping that they're not going to, cut the audio and things like that, because some people have said that there's a patch out. And I know when it screws up, they're going to say, oh, we should have Google run things. But I've had videos taken down from YouTube, so I know this is very, very provocative information, and I want to go very cautiously, carefully, and slowly. Now, you contacted the Barach campaign to say something about his drug use. I happen to have strong feelings about this because a friend's parents' friend, 79-year-old man, is smoldering in a federal penitentiary in Lexington for giving out pain medication exactly as he was taught in the finest universities. Why does a 79-year-old man have a 20-year sentence? So I have a lot of energy about this hypocrisy and denial about recreational drug use when we are locking up usually older doctors, usually doctors in practice, private practice. So I want to know from you, Larry, why did you tell the Barack Obama campaign about his drug use according to your personal experience?
Well, the reason I had contacted him was because I saw some kids on TV last September talking about how they were behind Obama, and this was before the primary campaign really even kicked off, okay? And they're talking about how honest and transparent he was, how that he had admitted in his book his drug use and that nobody else had done this. And I'm going, well, wait a minute. This is a candidate who claims that he has done illegal drugs but stopped at a specific period in his life. Well, I knew for a fact that this is a candidate who's claiming to have stopped using drugs at the age of 20, and even before confronted with that, claimed to have stopped it even earlier.
Now, Larry, was your hope that by him coming clean about his drug use, that you would take along the rest of the country and there would be less denial about drugs? Is that what your hope was?
No, my hope was that here's a candidate talking about being honest, open, and transparent. I actually had the hope that this man was going to be what he was projecting and claiming to be. I truly, at one time, had the sincere belief that he would be the new type of politics and openly admit that he lied about the extent of his drug use, and then we would have an open dialogue about the fact that, you know what, drug use is more prevalent and common than people are willing to admit in the political realm.
Okay, so I'm 1,000% behind you on that. So, George, you want something to say?
Yeah, it's too bad that Larry Sinclair and John have been ignored by the liberal media for so long. It's a good thing, finally, they're on Paula's show and admitting it right before the election. So let's return to the media. Let's return to the F word, front runner, okay? So whatever Barack Obama is, whatever Larry Sinclair says that he did with him in the past, the American people have a right to know, full disclosure. And they're not getting that full disclosure. And so we find out, here's what the liberal media is doing. Because the names Ugly and George are so powerful, the liberal media, especially the New York Times, the so-called newspaper of record, has put together Ugly and George. John McCain is running an ugly campaign, George W. Bush, etc., etc. So on my 87 million links for Ugly George, I now find that I'm linked, when people search for me, to the New York Times endorsing Obama, which I never asked to be, okay? So the New York Times comes out from Obama. It was great news and big news last Sunday for the liberal media. Can you zoom in on the other one, Paula?
Is this as far as I can? Oh,
yeah. No, the second one.
Yeah.
Now you see, lashed out for McCain for retreating further and further with an ugly campaign.
Farther and farther. They've got farther down the rabbit hole.
There, and then the next one is the real telling one. How do people find this? Well, a lot of people search for Ugly George, for naked women, okay? Almost as pretty as Paula. And while they're searching for naked women, it says New York Times comes out from Obama. Well, what does that have to do with naked women? Well, that's Ugly campaign and George Bush. So there we are. New York Times comes out from Obama, and it's on the Ugly George search pages, so it has been seen. Okay?
Now, John, what do you think about getting the word out? Ugly George was famous. Can you tell people how he was famous?
Ugly George is one of the great pioneers in public access television, cable access, or cable TV. He's one of the first reality TV personalities that went on the street with his camera and got, pretty girls to show their breasts. And he became a cult phenomenon.
Cult. Yes, very important to say that word correctly, John. Cult.
So Larry, what I wanted to ask you is, I'm very excited about your comment that you were hoping that he would be the transparent person that he indicated he was, and he could lead the way into a lot of healing. That really pleases me.
Well, I mean, listen, I have never told anyone until recently not to vote for this man. In fact, it was my entire position and intent to get people to vote for the man simply because he claimed he was going to be honest. Nothing was going to be hidden. And then when I ask him to come out and be honest, I get stonewalled. His representatives come out and accuse me of attempting to blackmail the campaign in November of last year for $100,000, which never happened, by the way. I never once asked the campaign to pay me anything to shut up. I never even decided to go public with the entire story until after the first of the year, when it was made clear to me by this Mr. Young over a 4-month period that the Obama campaign was doing nothing but fishing for information. They wanted to know who I had spoken with, who knew about this incident, and they were trying to do damage control from behind the scenes. I mean, if we're going to talk about being open and being real, then let's be open and be real. When I came out publicly, I made some statements about myself to the New York Post with Jeannie McIntosh, to the Chicago Tribune, who sent a reporter out for 5 days here to Duluth, Minnesota, to meet with me face-to-face. The New York Times, which Ugly George just mentioned, started calling me, demanding that I tell them anything and everything, that I talk to no one but them. Then when Sergio Kozlowski with the New York Times just offends me to the point to where I tell him to go take a hike, the New York Times prints a puff piece about Barack Obama's drug use, claiming that it's their opinion that he actually lied about the extent of his use in his book for political purposes. In other words, they had already started running damage control. Rather than simply address the issue, I have everything in 10 months that has been done publicly to try to discredit me, to try to, in the words of the Obama campaign, debunk me, has blown up in their face.
Larry, just a second. George wants to say something here.
Okay, it's very interesting that Larry Sinclair mentions the figure $100,000. Very interesting. In 1968, $100,000 was a lot more money than it is now. I have just found out that the very famous weathermen at the time, those great rich radicals who lived in Greenwich Village and owned townhouses, all right, blackmailed the hair producers and said, when you open in Seattle with your touring company, we want $100,000 in 1968, or we will bomb the theater. It's an old story, isn't it, Larry?
Well, the $100,000 comes into play in several things, though, George. First, Bill Burton, a spokesperson for the Obama campaign, through a fake Washington Post article circulated on the Internet, accuses me of blackmailing for $100,000. Never happened. Then you get the porn king of the Internet, Dan Parisi, coming out of nowhere, changing his WhiteHouse.com from porn to political news, only 2 weeks before offering me a $100,000 challenge to take a polygraph test. Then it turns out that the polygrapher is a fraud. Then they threatened me with the results saying, well, you lied. And I said, well, you know what? Post them. Give me the documentation. That was the agreement. They've never done this. Okay? When I came out publicly, I told people, from day one, I am not the perfect person. I have a criminal past. I have made my mistakes. I have served my time. And I'm not standing here telling anyone that I am this quote-unquote clean, squeaky clean, perfect angel of an individual, because I'm not. But that doesn't detract or take away from the fact that what I have accused Barack Obama of doing, I stand by 150%. My family knows me to be telling the truth, to the point to where they have been harassed, attacked, intimidated, and threatened nonstop. And public officials, state officials, law enforcement officials have ran checks on them, have put out their personal information on the Internet through these Daily Kos, Democratic Underground type websites that have done nothing but attack any opponent of Barack Obama.
Larry, it sounds pretty fascistic. Ugly wants to say something here.
Yeah, Larry, if you think you've been attacked, you have no idea how Ugly George has been attacked. Okay? At least the things they call me, at least they don't call you this. You are not a male chauvinist pig. You don't hate women. You don't exploit women. You don't objectify women. I got to figure out what that means someday. Okay? Objectify women. You don't take little tiny little 6-year-old girls in hallways and undress them. Okay? You don't do any of those things, do you?
No, I don't, George, but I have been accused of molesting 8-year-old boys.
Okay, well, that's boys.
Accused of attacking women, having a complex against women and an inferior complex, and that I constantly attack and physically and verbally women, which is not true.
Well, you never get a nude on camera, do you?
All kinds of things, and I just laugh at them. At least I respond and say, hey, you're a liar. When is Barack Obama going to stand up in front of the American public and either say, hey, Larry Sinclair, you're lying, or say, okay, I'm sorry, yeah, I did do drugs with Larry. Yeah, I did get head from Larry. But does that make me a bad person? And the answer to the question, does it make him a bad person? No. The act doesn't, but the lying and the deceit and the cover-up, that does.
Okay, Larry, what you're talking about is the media. We had an alleged debate not long ago between the two candidates run by a moderator. The moderator, of course, is paid by a multi-million-dollar corporation, which owns his network, right?
Right.
So you've heard the word script. So naturally, it's sort of semi-scripted in advance, like that scum Tim Russert who walked away from me on the street, because Tim Russert did not ever want Meet the Press to be a fair and free and open debate. He wanted a script. So the so-called debate had a script. What I'm wondering is, why has WCCO not contacted you and said, Larry, we've got to rush to do your story. We're not far away. Were you on the plane with Norm Coleman?
No.
So, excuse me, John, can you kind of explain the implications of this, what Larry said happened to his family? It's the rise of the fascism that we're concerned about. It's not one human being.
I'm curious, Larry, you mentioned that you've been in jail, but you've been in prison before.
That's correct.
And I understand it's what, credit cards or something?
Credit cards and checks. My last conviction was in 1980. Actually, the extent of my criminal history goes from 1980 to 1986.
Right, so you were young.
Yes.
Yeah, so you were.
The Google one.
That's correct.
Right. So obviously you have nothing. I mean, you're obviously very transparent.
Not that one. The Google.
And you don't seem like you're. You have you've been very transparent about here, very honest, I should say, about your situation with this thing that happened with Obama. I understand also.
That's okay.
You had nothing to really gain, also. Just putting it out there for a reason.
I have nothing to gain. I haven't asked for anything. You know, people have said, oh, well, you can make money off of this, contact this. I don't want to make money. What I want is the truth. I want Senator Obama to simply stand before the American people and tell the truth. Don't accuse everybody else of lying and cheating and stealing and murdering if you yourself don't. I mean, my God. You see what happened with Jennifer Hudson's family just recently when they're murdered. Man, they find the killer of her mother and her brother in 3 days. Donald Young was a well-known figure in Southside Chicago. Donald Young, it was very clear, was a well-known associate and friend of Barack Obama, a presidential candidate. He was brutally murdered on December 23rd of last year. His own mother stands before CBS 2 in Chicago and accuses the Chicago police and Mayor Daley's office of covering to protect Barack Obama in solving the murder of their son, Donald Young. Now, why is... Huh?
John, can you kind of explain, because I was setting up...
Who do you think killed, what was the motive behind killing Donald Young?
I have always said I think the motive is Donald Young knew way too much. Donald Young knew more about me. Donald Young had made it clear to me through 4 months of communication that he was sexually and intimately involved with Barack Obama for quite some time. You know, Donald Young became a bigger liability than I ever would be. It was easy for the Obama campaign to try to paint me as some loony bin nutcase on the Internet, which they've successfully done to a point. It would have been more difficult for them to take a respected school choir director and musician who, had a standing in this community and try to paint this person as someone who was psychotic, or mentally unstable. The only way to neutralize Donald Young and the information that Donald Young had on Barack Obama was to have him killed.
Excuse me, Larry, why would Donald Young do that? And you know what I'm saying?
I don't think Donald Young ever had any intentions of trying to expose Barack Obama, because the contacts that he had with me, it was very clear that Mr. Young was really torn up inside about even calling me, about even contacting me, asking me questions, to fish for information for Barack Obama. But one of the last conversations we had, he made it clear that I needed to be careful and that I needed to understand under no uncertain terms that regardless of what was told to me by him earlier as far as Obama was consulting with his pastor on the best way, to publicly correct his drug statement, that was not going to happen. Well, and that's, after that comment, after that statement, that's when I started contacting media personnel. The first person I ever spoke with was a Jeannie McIntosh with the New York Post, okay? Now, Jeannie was honest, and she was researched. She was not, quick to the gun, so to speak. And then on February 12th, her editor told her to have the story written for publication. She got it written. She had it turned in. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, some political editor says, nope, we're not running it.
Uh-huh. Well, you know what, Larry, it's so heartening to hear you tell the story in this way, that the person who did get killed didn't really intend to do harm, but it sounds like he was a little bit frightened. And I think it's very important in this day and age, if fascism is on the horizon, which it definitely seems to be, each person that's courageous and is doing what you're doing for the right reasons is going to make a difference, so that we don't have that fascist state coming, and we can be free.
You know the expression, don't you?
No.
Loose cannon. He was a loose cannon. But the worst loose cannon of all is when they put Barack Obama together with Paula Gloria, okay, and their nights of lust together. Now, how come I haven't seen that on WCCO? Okay? Yeah. All right?
That's nice to keep humor into the whole thing.
Thank
Isn't
you.
it right, Larry?
Hey, you know what, Paula? At least he put you in the right category there, because Rachel Maddow was drooling all over Obama last night, and the whole time she's drooling over him, she's thinking about Michelle. So.
Can we quote him on that?
Can we quote? Well, I'm sure. Look, I know what it's like to be smeared on the internet, but I also know, and this is why I was praying to keep in mind, when we're frustrated with people, let's try to find the evil energy behind it, if there is such a thing as evil energy, and cut the strings that evil energy is influencing those puppets on, that they can collapse down away from that bad energy, find their own energy, rise up, and join us in this, because it takes many people. You're being very courageous, Larry. And I asked Webster yesterday, I said, well, if this other guy got killed, how come Larry's still around? Can you talk about that?
Well, a lot of people ask me that. Number one, I wasn't as convenient to Barack Obama. First, they really had no idea where I was at first. Now everybody in the world knows where I'm at. I think someone said it best when they said, by making that YouTube video, the original one where I made the public statement, was probably the one thing that prevented anything from happening to me. Uh-huh. Because if anything was to happen to me now, whether Barack Obama was involved in it or not, there would be a complete groundswell that would accuse him or his surrogates of being involved. Not to mention the fact that his own supporters have actually, sent specific threats saying that if this affects the Obama campaign in any way, shape, or form, they personally will show up at my home and blow my brains out. I've had people mail me items through the mail that they posted on the internet were soaked or ran through human waste prior to posting in the mail. They put up my address, my phone number. They've actually told people, you know, to be standing outside my apartment building to attack. I don't care anymore. I mean,
Larry,
the one thing this country needs to understand is...
Have you ever been attacked?
I'm sorry?
Have you ever been attacked?
Physically here in Duluth, no. I've had a couple of people in Cleveland recently on the Take It to the Streets tour to actually go out and tell my story to voters face to face. I was pushed, elbowed, punched, shoved, and had my feet stomped on by a Obama supporter at a Clinton rally in downtown Cleveland.
Yeah, Larry, you put up the original YouTube video. What happened to that?
My accounts, my YouTube, 2 Hotmail accounts, 1 AOL account, and my Blogger account were all hacked into approximately 2.5, 3 weeks ago on the exact same day, October 10th and 11th of this year.
But, you know, John, I find that so disturbing. You know, even what, you know, was suggested to me that MNN has a sort of a cutout, and on my most provocative shows, you know, the audio goes out in the Upper West Side or whatever.
That happened to a show that had you, that had Larry Sinclair.
No kidding.
Yeah, it was the Larry Sinclair episode.
Well, so we're going to have to stand by and see what happens. I'll post this on YouTube, but...
that show with that, yeah, they blocked your audio. I even emailed you about that.
I know. It's something...
that MNN engaged in TV fakery.
Right.
Oh, you had a Larry Sinclair show? I never even knew.
Yeah, it was Ugly George who got me into it. He was at an ACAP meeting, and at the ACAP meeting he said, who of all these producers wants to do this show? And I was always interested in Ugly George's work because I'm into Tantra. You know, mantra and yantra equals Tantra and manifestation. And we need to master this energy, otherwise it masters us. And that's why we see our politicians are such, you know, victims.
As Ugly George said many times on the show, we need girls with balls. That's an expression. And at this big ACAP meeting...
George, we're going to get that with Michelle.
Thank you. Can I quote you on that?
Yes, you can.
All right. What, of course, we meant was that there were all these big-mouth producers, these loud-mouth liberals at the ACAP meeting, saying, public access, public access. And I said, public access must say the truth, must not be held in by corporate media. And if it's reined in by corporate media restraints, then it's not public access anymore, is it?
Exactly.
And out of all these people, who had the balls but Paula Gloria?
Well, thank you very much.
It was... hand of, his little applause there.
What? No, but
I also wanted to just...
no, but just a second.
George just said something really interesting.
Just a second, John. John, just a second. Before we go on to that, I want to say one thing. After I went on Howard Stern, I had 50 subscriptions drop me out of 1,000. And to this day, I've never really resolved why that happened, but it did come to my attention that there is some information going around that they keep IP addresses and that you're on a list, and if you're watching these channels, you're going to more likely be going off to the concentration camps that are coming. And I think it is so important that we have people start to courageously step forward and say, those kind of things will not happen if we do speak out. I had some vague idea that this Larry Sinclair story wasn't going to be easy, and I told Webster Tarpley, of all the things I've done, Nico Haupt on directed energy weapons and how the World Trade Center became dust in 11 seconds, everything that I've brought up that could be considered out of the ordinary, the most flack I got was on the Obama sex scandal. So when I hear you talk about it, Larry, and the intentions that you have, that had he come forth and just fessed up to it, it could have been a healing for the entire nation to say, okay, maybe I'm not a homosexual, maybe I don't have this drug problem, but everybody has something that they have to come forward and talk about. And if they know that they're in a loving community that will accept them for it, that's the kind of nation that can accomplish anything.
See, Paula, exactly what you're saying. That is the premise that this man tried to put out in his campaign, but yet he talks about loving, taking care of your neighbor, and at the same time, they're obtaining information and pooling information and putting in databases on anybody and everybody that has, even media, even, representatives of the media that have questioned him or even come close to opposing him on anything, are being subjected to harassment, threats. I mean, they're posting as recently as today, that anybody that's associated with me after Election Day are going to find that their mortgages are going to be called, that they're going to lose their jobs, that they have no idea what is to come.
But you know, some of us have already so rock bottom they can't do that anymore, and I think that it's very important that we keep moving forward and use the example that you have, that you've set out here. Don't you think, George?
Well, again, I hate to keep talking about 2004, but we can learn something from it. The corporate media is doing the same thing again. You realize that every poll has Obama comfortably ahead, okay? And they haven't used the word front runner, but that's what they mean. They learned their mistake in 2004. Front runner Howard Dean, the next president of the United States, today made a statement. So everything should stop because the front runner, the next president, Howard Dean, said this and that. Now, when the people of Iowa, those stupid Christian conservatives, sharply disagreed with Time Warner here in New York City, you know what happened?
What?
It was something wrong with the dumb people of Iowa. It was, how dare they disagree with the media? Well, how dare the people disagree today with the front runner, the clear front runner, in every poll, Obama, okay? So it's redux. It's over again. It's the same thing again, all right? And after Election Day, if the election is not that close and if McCain pulls it out handily, okay, we will see a lot of not only hand-wringing, but charges of fraud and deceit and treachery. And how dare McCain pull it out by using trickery and deceit and treachery?
Well, no, but I think there's that too. I mean, we have to be aware of.
I'd like to say something.
What's that?
I'd like to say something.
Yes.
I think Larry Sinclair's story is very instrumental, specifically for this particular campaign. It's a big historical campaign when you think about the ramifications of Barack Obama being elected to the United States of America. And it really comes down to the old adage, is that it's not who you know, but it's who you blow.
Oh, my gosh.
I knew you were going to go there.
What a shocking thing. You only get this on public access, you know. Okay?
So I just want to say, we're going to be wrapping this show up. I'm only going to extract 28 minutes for Manhattan Neighborhood Network. It's going to go out on Election Day. But we're going to have a call, I think, Larry, after we hang up with you. I'd like to keep George here and also John in Puerto Rico. And maybe Webster can make some comments about the implications of a fascistic society.
Oh, too bad Larry can't be around for that.
Well, actually, I do have to go because I'm gonna be on Webster later, but I have to actually go do an errand before I go on with Webster.
Yeah, I just technically can't do it, John. Get both of them on anyway.
Yeah.
Is there anything?
That's fine.
John, do you want to ask him anything in conclusion?
Oh, no, I'm just glad that we got to talk to you and we got to know you better. And I hope the audience out there got to know you better. And you seem like a very genuine human being. And you're very creative for bringing out this story. Obviously, you have a lot. Considering that you're obviously you're openly homosexual. I take it.
All my life.
Yeah. So you're obviously this is not something. It's not deviant. I don't get that from you. I don't get like you're trying to be deviant or you have some kind of strange ulterior motive. You seem like you're very genuine from the gut. And I just want to thank you for, letting us know, getting to know Larry Sinclair a little better.
Thank you. And like I said, I hope you guys can point me in the direction. I would actually like to see parts of the show if that's at all possible.
Oh, definitely. George has something more to say.
Okay, Larry, I just want to again talk about your character assassination, okay? Among other things, you haven't yet been accused of murdering 6-year-old girls.
That's true.
But I have, okay? Really? What has happened is Ugly George shot pictures of women with large breasts who are obviously over 18. So the next step is you want to go out and murder 6-year-old John Benet Ramsey.
Oh, no.
Well, that's what they said about me.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, John, Larry, is there anything you want to say in conclusion?
No, nothing other than, it's one thing if you really want to vote for this man because you believe in him. It's another thing to believe in a candidate that you know, and I think everybody owes it to themselves and owes it to this country to know the candidate and not just the media hype that's out there.
Right. I think that's important. Thank you, Larry.
Is this going to go, what are you going to title this show, Paul? Are you going to call it the Blowjobs episode or something?
No, but all kidding aside, guys, if, what Webster was saying is that the Barack Obama strategy, if you do have fascism rising, and this is just one scenario, that they could dig around and actually within a year after some draconian measures are brought about, kind of like what they were saying to you, calling in mortgages and things, except they really are calling in everybody's mortgages, not because they've done something politically incorrect, but because that's what happens when you can't pay your mortgages,
Exactly.
and they're not doing anything about it. So when they sort of step up the implications of that, and people are very unhappy with the Barack Obama regime, and they bring him down, the fear is that there'll be some association with Muslims. Muslims will get in trouble for it, and as a result of the Muslims getting in trouble, and maybe they even have internment camps, because this has happened in the past. This has happened to other civilizations. Why wouldn't it happen here if we don't have courageous, brave people who are believing in the Constitution and so on?
Well, Paula, the one thing I do want to do before I get off the line is I want to thank you. I want to thank all three of you. The three of you show more character and guts and gall than the likes of Howard Stern or Don Imus or any of these so-called...
yeah, that's all commercial-sponsored artists. They're not real people.
Yeah, I mean, it's just absolutely amazing that people who claim to be out there for the common man have been scared into just not saying a word.
Okay.
George wants to say something else.
Hello, John Gulino?
Yes.
The famous author?
Yes.
Okay, I just ran into the Bonfire of the Vanities, Tom Wolfe, okay?
Hey, your friend Tom Wolfe, yeah.
Yes, just ran into him, and the first thing he said to me was, I'm doing Bonfire of the Vanities Light, in other words, a sequel, and he wants you to help ghostwrite it with him, okay?
Sure.
All right, so there's Tom Wolfe right up on the screen, who ran into me a few days ago. Bonfire of the Gulinos, he calls it.
That's
Okay.
it, man. We get the Mussolini book burning.
Yes.
Great. So,
Actually, John, help me find a ghostwriter, because something tells me it's going to take a book to get this story out.
Yeah, well, I wrote The Gangs of New York in Hunter College, so and I was ripped off, and that's one of my stories on M&N, because we always tell honest stories on public access. So we're all out there. We use public access as our free speech medium because we're all affected by society, and society is out to crush us.
I just want to say, Larry, welcome to the Manhattan Neighborhood Network family.
Thank you.
The real family, okay?
Okay.
Thanks, Ed.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Take care.
Bye.
I'm honored to be in such company.
Thank you, sir.
Bye. We'll keep you posted.
Hello?
Webster?
Yeah, do I have the wrong number? 86?
Listen, a lot of people have been calling this number asking for Webster.
Okay, I have the wrong number, sorry.
Many people. Could you tell them to stop, please?
Well, we're misdialing. I'm dialing 301-86...
Calling from?
Okay, I'm calling from New York. Sorry.
Yeah, Webster Tarpley. Do you
Okay,
know?
I dialed 310 and not 301. Sorry.
What? Wrong number. What
Okay.
state are you calling from?
I'm calling from New York, and 301 is
Rico,
not...
It's Maryland.
Yeah, no, this is California.
Okay.
Oh, that's great. He's a famous author. You should read his books if you can.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay,
Bye, bye.
thank you. Bye.
Okay, goodbye.
301 is Maryland.
Yeah, we should do that more often, Paula. Do like conference pranks. Just talk to people.
Right.
Always trying to get her to talk. Hey, you know Webster? California.
Let's see if this works. 1, 3.
The line is busy, but you can have Verizon keep trying and call you back when
I
the line
guess that's
becomes
not gonna
available.
work.
For 70, calling 3. No charge for repeat dialing subscribers.
John?
The line is busy, but you can have Verizon keep trying and call you back.
John?
Yes.
It looks like it's still busy.
He's not. So maybe we should, that night with the camera, keeping an eye on things. And it was just crazy.
Well, it was really very foresightful of you to have made the tape.
I know. I'm telling you, something in the back of my mind said I was going to regret it if I didn't do something. Something in the back of my mind told me I would regret it. And those people are regretting it. The ones who dropped the ball, they regret it to this day. They look back and they say they blew it. And that's what I didn't want to do. That's what I hated about Eminem, and I hated a lot of the, not Eminem, I hated the mindset, the mind control that everybody has with each other. And even people I won't even mention that I somewhat, I do respect. I just feel like they threw me under the bus.
You mean they were a little gutless?
Yes. Like,
yeah.
I hate to mention. I don't want to mention names.
No. I know. I'm recording this because I think it's important. But can you tell George exactly what happened to you that day? Because you said
George, are you there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what happened was I showed up to work at M&N the right day after 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
Because the day on 9/11 they shut down M&N and told everybody to go home.
On the day that they needed it more than any other day.
Yeah, and there was a lady who worked at M&N, and she was trapped in the towers. So you have, like, her family calling M&N. You've got people calling in, and the phones were off the hook.
Yeah.
And I swear to God, man, the place was trashed. There was trash on the floors. The tapes were thrown on the floor. The tapes...
At M&N?
Yeah, the tapes were still stuck in the machine.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. 59th Street is nowhere near the World Trade Center.
Right.
So why should anything happen 3 miles north of the World Trade Center?
Well, total anarchy set in, and there was nobody there in charge. And everybody decided not to do their job anymore, and they started letting people in off the street. And it became sort of like a safe house. But what happened was, no one was in charge. I had to take charge of my job. Everybody abandoned their own jobs, but were still hanging around. Whereas I was there to perform my job and realized that I had a whole bunch of people trying to make me pull the channels. Literally pull the channels, shut everything down, and kick everybody out of the building. And good thing I had a couple of people who were actually conducting live shows. Harold Channel was conducting a live show at the moment they were telling me to pull the channels. And they didn't give a fuck. They didn't care that there was a performance going on. We had these Japanese and Chinese dancers came in, and they were performing this sort of peace healing dance, and it had the Chinese dragons and all this, like you see down in Chinatown. Well, they had all those people were all in the big studio, and it was music, and it was, it was just like this surreal moment. And at the same time, you had these nuts that I won't mention by name, trying to shut the place down and yelling and screaming, threatening me, and people were just like chaotic.
All right, so the point is that when America and New York City needed the media most, and needed the alternative media most to tell them what was happening, instead of, let's say, the prepared media from other sources, there were forces trying to get the alternative media off the air.
Right, just like the way they talk about the TV fakery that occurred on the corporate media news.
That's what I was referring to.
Yeah, so that's going on. So you would think that, so of course they had to squash the live media, the public access media, and they used thuggery.
Well, did anybody order you to make up a chyron saying America under attack?
No, because they would not hang, this is the truth, man. The executive director wouldn't even hang an American flag in the building because he said it was a symbol of terrorism to his people.
His people? Who are his people?
Black people.
Oh, and who would that be?
I guess the liberals.
No, I mean, who would that director be?
He was,
Mendelssohn, right?
No, that came later.
That came
much later. No, this was during Tony Riddle's,
But Tony Riddle was a good guy. I thought Tony was the one that called you and said to keep the channels going.
He did, but what he's saying, what George is alluding to was about, was there any patriotism expressed, and it was anti-American, straight up.
Mm-hmm.
There was no they still won't hang an American flag in the building.
Okay, but I mean, were you given a chyron mysteriously that showed a plane crashing into a building, or America under attack, or let's switch to the Pentagon, which has just been attacked?
No, because there was no infrastructure that could, the public access facility in Shanksville, Pennsylvania is off the map. And the same thing in Washington, D.C., where the Pentagon got hit.
Mm-hmm.
Those public access stations are silent, and you haven't heard a peep out of them.
Mm-hmm.
They may not even exist.
Well,
there was no infrastructure to even go with switching across like the way they could possibly do it today.
Yeah. Well, as I keep saying to well-known people, okay, there is no M&N in 99.9% of the United States. There's no such thing. And you don't have to go far. You could take the ferry to Staten Island, for example, and find out there is no M&N in Staten Island. They use the word vetting, like they vet antiques.
Yeah.
Well, I just posted something on a Macintosh website that has no political implications whatsoever, and the message came back, we are evaluating your post. Evaluating it. Okay? It's about Apple computers, but they have to evaluate it. Now, if they're going to evaluate that, they're going to evaluate anything, right?
Right. Well,
so
hello?
You get the idea.
Yeah, to seek the value of your post.
Well, they claim that that's the reason they have to evaluate it to make sure it's valuable. Translation...
Like appraising.
Yeah, but the translation, John, is, does it say anything that our sponsors wouldn't like? Such as, you don't need to buy the sponsor's product, you can do this on a Macintosh without buying that product. Well, if you say something like that, you're not going to get posted.
Right, although they do use reverse psychology with the fast food companies, like when McDonald's makes fun of Burger King, and it's mentioned in the commercial. They do stuff like that, though, but that's a different... I'm sorry, hold on a second, yeah?
Okay.
What do you want?
They're all there.
You know what John was doing,
like
don't you?
in the what?
He was out voting for Herman Badillo, the first Puerto Rican congressman. Okay.
He makes me sick.
So, John, where do you...
lizard eyes.
What do you think we can accomplish? Because yesterday, or on the 27th at the ACAP meeting, Harold actually really swung into the spirit at a certain moment, and he sort of got above his Obama stupor or trance, and he said some pretty nice things, but it was almost as if he doesn't even remember that it was his show that was cut. He keeps wanting to call it a bureaucratic glitch or some ineptitude.
What show was this about?
Well, you're describing a scene of it seems as though a concerted determination to cut the channels. Didn't you say 6 people came to you throughout the day in groups of 2?
Yeah, good cop, bad cop, and including, and there was like one white woman in the group, but everybody else was black.
Can you describe that? And also, I'd like you to answer a little bit more what Ugly George
there were two, one white guy, one black girl, and one white girl, one white guy, and the rest were black. Everybody was black.
Okay, but just before you go into that...
I'm not racist, by the way.
No, I understand, but George said, how come if somebody was working at M&N, why were they at the towers?
Oh, there was a girl who worked there. Her name was Celeste. I forgot her last name, but her name was Celeste, and she was a former employee of M&N. And she was at the Windows of the World for a seminar for people who wanted to become journalists, so she was like, so they had a little dinner there.
I see.
And then that's when the towers were attacked.
Okay, I'm glad that you clarified that, because what you're saying is she used to work at M&N, she was caught in the towers, and her parents... She did very good work at M&N, too. Excuse me?
She did very good work at M&N. She got all the mothers of children who were killed by police brutality. Like Anthony Baez's mother.
Right. So, okay, but...
Abner Louima.
Great, but I'm just trying to stay on one... I mean, that's heartbreaking, obviously. But it seems as though what this story tells us is that the bereaved parents, or the worried parents, that, out of their mind with anxiety and they're just freaked out. They're calling the public access stations. What more logical place to call?
But that's what was so outrageous, and what made the whole place make me think that I had entered the bizarro world. But I think in moments like this, a catastrophic event just brings out the true colors of people. Their true nature comes through.
Yeah, John, I'm trying to return to the point. If you watched broadcast television that day, amazingly detailed graphics went up within seconds saying America under attack. All right? And this is after the first plane hit the World Trade Center. Before we knew about Shanksville, before we knew about the second plane, before we knew about the Pentagon. And these graphics were not done hurriedly. They were done carefully. So the question being, John, who gave you at MNN those carefully prepared graphics to put up, or did they?
They didn't put up any graphics.
So you were not part of the conspiracy. You were not handed a script saying, America is under attack. 2 planes have attacked here in New York, one in Shanksville and one in the Pentagon and numerous others and this and that. You were not given a script, John.
No, I was told what to do, and I went against their orders.
Mm-hmm.
And their orders were to shut the channels off.
Right.
And because I was the guy on duty, there was one character there who did shut a couple of channels off, and I immediately put them back on.
Mm-hmm.
So every time he shut it off, I would lean forward and put it back on, and it became like a game almost.
John, did you have seniority? Were you the master control operator that you could do that?
Yes, I did. I did have the seniority, and I was also covering for playback operators who were, who ran home and didn't come back to work that whole week.
Right.
Just the mass control operated the entire week of 9/11 because nobody else was there. The whole place was completely abandoned. Like I said, there were tapes on the floor, tapes stuck in the machines. Everything was completely abandoned, and yet they were telling me, that I was on duty, and slowly, eventually, programming came back on. But it was at this, it's just the day after stuff like that, you want to look at your coworker and you want to really retaliate against the guy.
Okay, John, what I want to know is how large was the plane that hit MNN?
That's a funny one. That's a good one.
Well, there must have been some reason that all these people ran home and said, oh my God, 5 miles south of us at Chambers Street, a building has been attacked.
You know what it is? I'll tell you exactly what
miles.
it is. And this is exactly what I felt, and this is what to this day carries it. It's like being with children who are bored and they want to go home so they can eat their ice cream and watch TV. That's exactly the mentality that set in. It was like, oh man, this sucks. Oh, I don't give a shit about this, man. I'm getting the fuck out of here.
Okay, so you refuse to describe the size of the 757 that hit MNN. You refuse, huh?
It's like there's one better.
It was definitely, if anything, it was a sort of invisible plane.
It's like the plane-shaped hole in Harold Channer's mouth. I'm trying to get Harold to take that seriously. Mm-hmm. He doesn't yet, but
I know. I know. It's like that plane-shaped hole in his mouth. I think I can see Edna Citron waving from there in his mouth every time he smiles.
Can you speak a little bit about how that disturbs you, so that you can create some empathy with Harold on that?
Yeah, let's pass the hat, and get him into a census chair, and because we need that face. Public access. He's sort of like the dean of public access.
Thank you, John, on that one.
So we should help him.
So can you also explain a little bit more exactly throughout the day how these 6 people came? Because I interrupted you because I wanted to understand why somebody from MNN's mother would be calling. If
they were saying, okay, the main guy was, I can't mention his name. Okay. He used to work there. He was pretty prominent. He had been there for many years, and it was always unclear what he actually did. And he was a policymaker, as far as I know. And he was responsible for bringing in the groups and giving them the grants. He was that guy. If you wanted a grant, you went to this guy.
Oh, I wonder why I never got any grants.
Now, this guy, he was pretty much the one who was, I guess, the third in charge because everybody else was gone. The top tier was gone.
Oh, by the way, are these people here today? So if we do what Harold says at part 2 on ACAP, he says, let's get to the bottom of this?
They're all gone. They're all gone.
They're all gone. Okay.
They're all gone. Thank God.
Well, yes, thank God, but in another way, you know, you want some responsibility here. I think you're going to like the ACAP meeting part 2, okay?
Yeah, I'm going to check it out. But what they were doing was, it went from persuasion to like a guy like 5 inches away from your face screaming, and you could feel the spit on your face. That kind of anger. To shut the channels off, screaming like a drill sergeant. This guy named Rivaldi used to be. He used to work for Donna Woody, and he was like the program policy guy. He was always the one who was always writing up people for violations, and he was always pulling people's shows, and he was always bullying producers. And he was a thug, and nobody ever had a conversation with him. He was not an outspoken person. He was not the kind of guy that would talk to you. He was not an initiator of conversations. He just seemed like he had a gloom. He always sat around in his office, ordered Chinese food, and nobody ever saw him. And, there were times when I thought maybe the guy was completely blasted on, like, a bottle of vodka or something, because, I mean, one time he couldn't even handle, it's just you wonder what people are doing in their office. And this guy was sitting around there being a little fucking Hitler, fucking people around, and he fucked me around a lot. And what I didn't like about him was that he had the balls to get up in my face and tell me to pull the channels. And I knew I was going to, I'm willing to fight. I was willing to get into a physical altercation because I really hated him. Because I said, this guy's a punk. And I said, and his fat little friend Rick, this guy Rick Junger, is standing there, and he's standing there with a fucking Che Guevara t-shirt, telling me to cut the fucking channels off. And I got these 2 guys up in my face, and they're yelling at me, and they're telling me what to do. And I said, I'm not pulling the channels. I said, you're the phones, and I'm like explaining myself to the point that it doesn't even matter. So at some point, he starts sending over other coworkers, and they happen to be like these Afrocentric assholes, getting up in my face, telling me to pull the fucking channels. And after a while, I said, you know what? This is not your job. I said, you're not even doing your job. Get out of my fucking, get out of mass control right now. I kicked them out. I locked the doors. I locked the glass doors. And I got people banging their fists, trying to get in, and the guy's like fumbling for the keys, and he's, throwing the door open and coming in, and he's like, cut the fucking channels off.
Okay, John, I have to cut in for 1 second. Do you know why Paula Gloria never got a grant from that guy?
Why?
She never did a Larry Sinclair on him. Now, if she had done that, okay, she would have had the biggest grant available.
$1,000 grant.
Nothing like comic relief here.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so that's what it was like. It was a real high-energy, intense situation. And it reminded me of that film China Syndrome with Jack Lemmon, and he's in this nuclear silo, and he locks the doors because the place is about to explode, and nobody will believe him. And it was sort of like that. It was like the China Syndrome. And eventually, when I got fired from M&N, they had these 2 black niggers, 6'5", black trench coats with guns, having me removed from the building, and they were not cops. And that was under Steve Mendelson. So from that point onward, I decided to set my arrows against M&N, and I have never changed my story, and I've never wavered about that company. And that's exactly why I'm still talking about it.
Well, maybe we can get Tom Wolfe and you, and together you can collaborate and write this story, Bonfire of the Gulinos.
Bonfire of the Public Access. Because it is a bonfire of public access.
Look, I just so appreciate today, because I really felt that when Larry was really clear about why he stepped forward, that's a kind of a clarion call for more people to do it. And I tried to jump in because a lot of people feel, oh, I know about no planes, I can't talk about it, they've got my IP address, they're going to get me. I think that's succumbing to one of the worst aspects of exactly what whoever brought the towers down wants to happen.
Well, that's why you see why I'm angry against liberals. Left liberal organization like M&N is just thugs, gangsters,
thugs.
This sort of mentality, and it's like, you're not freedom of speech.
But people don't understand the thuggery part. That's why I'm saying your story.
Freedom of speech, right? That's the coercion.
Right.
And I feel like M&N tries to pull that stunt on people. They think they're slick. They think they're so slick and they're not.
So now, John, can you explain the footage that you got, how that happens? Because this happened, these two people were coming.
M&M didn't have surveillance cameras in those days. So basically you could walk into the building, steal something, and walk out, which is what used to happen a lot.
God.
Steal the high-end cameras. Used to have been stolen, that camera. Anybody could walk in there, cop a squat, and they didn't have to move. They could sit there the whole day, nobody would chase them out. And there were the security guards, as you know, Paula, they would sleep on the job, which you saw video footage of on the Ron Ushak show.
Right.
Or sleeping security guards.
Right.
That's real. You know, and I have a lot of clips like that in my archive of the sleeping security guards. So M&N was one of these places where when they would shut it down, some of the homeless people would still linger behind the cameras. Like behind the curtains.
Right.
In some alcove somewhere in deep. That's why 3/4 of the building today is completely shut off from the public, as opposed to being just a quarter of the building, which was for the staff. They've cut off 3/4. Now you just got the quarter on the second floor, and that's it, and you've got the studios. But other than that, you can't access the building anymore. It's a very controlled.
Gloria Messer thinks it's
on 9/11. It was completely open. M&N was open.
Gloria Messer thinks it's a mosque, a secret mosque. Now, my point is...
the third floor, she mentioned about there's Muslim ceremonies going on.
Yeah, now what I'm saying is when you're not transparent, people start speculating all kinds of things, and that's a big concern of mine. I think, first of all, Harold thinks I'm mixing things when I'm talking about this incident and binary economics, but my reason for binary economics is capital ownership. Who owns it? Because I think when you're cloudy on who owns it, then thuggery takes advantage of that cloudiness and it can come in. And maybe the owners don't even know. But if you don't even know who the owners are, you don't even know who to ask who's responsible for. This is a very, very serious problem.
Well, another problem is their board of directors. Now, their board of directors are impossible to get a hold of. If you realize, you can't get a hold of them. If you have a serious grievance, you can't get to them. You got to go through the chain of command. And that chain of command, it's a long, tedious process. And basically, M&N, anytime they have their own hearings where they have a problem with somebody and that person brings an appeal of some kind, M&N always finds it in their own favor instead of the person's favor. And I've seen a lot of that. I've seen people, arms twisted, where they were forced to, take violations that they didn't even incur or blamed for things that they didn't do. So when you deal with it, remember, M&N rewrites its own rules of society. A lot of people don't realize you're giving up a lot of personal information when you sign up. They know where you live, they have the phone number, they have your social security number, they have a lot of information, and you don't know how secure that is because you've got teenagers running the place.
Well, okay, let's assume it's not secure, but what I'm thinking is how can we bring this to a better place? Because now people are saying, oh, let's have Google run everything, but they don't really know very much about what's going on with Google. And I'm thinking if you have to go up the chain of command at M&N, that gives us a little breathing room, because I bet you anything they don't want to be bumped out by Google, which I hear is it's got its foundation place now somewhere in the Middle East, somewhere in Israel. Because when I went to YouTube itself, trying to find out physically why my shows were being taken down, because fair use is something so precious that we in a democracy have the opportunity to make commentary on images that are important and that we share, icons in our society that we share. We should have the opportunity to comment on them. So when I went to look for them, it was like I was a criminal. I was treated like a criminal. I said, this is YouTube. YouTube, all about being you and expressing yourself and talking with video. And just for having a camera, I'm treated horribly. So if you don't know where Google is, and at least you're assuming the board of directors of M&N are somewhere in Manhattan, I think that Paul Cosgrave, the director of information technology, should address this.
Paul Cosgrave has refused to return Ugly George's phone call. He will talk to moronic nobodies with public access shows that nobody watches. He will not talk to Ugly George. There's a story there, obviously, okay?
Yeah.
And not so incidentally, when Ugly George put up a little cute clip, not nude, of me with Angela Summers, the porn star. Do you know that YouTube had to look at that for a day and a half before deciding whether it was okay to put up? Supposedly they were protecting people from TNA. Okay? A day and a half of just a porn star in a halter and Ugly George.
Really?
Yes. Okay?
That's interesting because Paula has a video up and she's washing her sheets
Yeah.
with her body.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, but I blocked out any important parts.
I don't know.
Yeah, but
Really?
you're not a porn queen.
Really?
Pretty revealing.
Okay. I keep telling Paula how dangerous she is with her blonde body, and she doesn't get it. Okay?
But yeah, that was a nice. There's a fetish right there.
Absolutely.
What's that?
A whole, you could do a whole video series of you just taking a bath with the sheets.
I'm taking a bath with the sheets to show that then I hang them out the windows. That's not legal too. Did you know you can't hang
Body
them out?
wash.
What's that?
They're body washed sheets, isn't that? Yeah. That's like a fetish.
Really?
Well, men get into stuff like that, yeah.
Oh, I see. Maybe other
Do a whole
peculiar
series
people.
of just washing the clothes.
Well, I
washing the
actually want to continue that with putting a radiation hormesis stone in, because if you can keep the water hot for 8 hours, then the low-grade radiation can be very healing. I actually want to start challenging the medical community because doctors are doing therapies themselves that they won't give out to their patients. They know they're more effective than chemotherapy and radiation, but they're that afraid of the American Medical Association. And I'm just going to use everything I possibly can use to get that word out. And I'm sorry if it disturbed you, John.
What?
Me in the bathtub.
That didn't disturb me at all. Like I said, there's like a whole new genre there.
A whole new genre of washing your sheets
You
in the
do like
bathtub.
the kind of chorus kick thing there, you know? That's
Yeah, right. No, that's what kind of intrigued me in the first place and got me to put the cameras up.
Well, when you did the chorus kick, I was like, oh, I could watch it.
You haven't seen all my YouTube stuff.
You haven't seen, George hasn't seen it yet.
No, I'm probably too shocked to go there and look, but I will force myself to go look.
It's there right now.
A naked blonde woman in a bathtub.
It's the Saint Mark.
A bathtub might destroy society.
But do you know after Halloween, do you know what the next day is? All Saints Day.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Do you know one of the greatest saints in India? There was a book about the 5 really great saints, and the idea is that when they recycle through their bodies, at one time you're going to have 5 saints holding down, different responsibilities. Well, one of them was called Sarmad Sahib, and do you know what he was finally beheaded for? Well, first of all, let me tell you, after they beheaded him, he picked up his head and he walked up the steps of the mosque. But people sort of let it go by the wayside why he was beheaded. He was beheaded because he was so God-intoxicated he wasn't wearing any clothes.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of that,
I have dreams like that.
do you know the reason
Yeah, that's a
that
good
Paula
thing.
has been banned in the bathtub? Because she was
I would-
taking a bath with Osama bin Laden, and he was soaping her down. We have that on good authority. There's a chyron from broadcast television that says, here's Osama slipped into the country to take a nude bath and soap down the naked body, of Paula Gloria. Now, that's very true. I know because it's the front runner, and he's been declared the front runner in the election. So we have to pay attention to Howard Dean, the president, as the front runner.
Do you understand that front-running stuff, John?
Yeah, Howard Dean, man. I mean, you haven't heard a peep out of him this whole campaign. Not one peep, and yet he had the biggest mouth a couple of years ago. Classic Republican Party. Democratic Party.
Let's see if we can get a hold of Webster. Have you finished telling your story enough at MNN?
About Eminem dropping the ball on 9/11 will
Yeah.
never be finished.
It'll never be finished.
I will be posting the footage.
That's great.
I will be posting, and I think there is a couple of pieces of dialogue in there that should be very shocking.
Right. Well, now that Larry has been so brave to do what he's done, I think we should all follow suit. And
You got to give a lot of credit to a guy, for giving Barack Obama a blowjob. I mean, it's really shocking.
and talking about it. So
yeah,
let's,
I mean, it's like, it's the subject matter is what's so shocking. It's not just, he's so calm and so reasoned, and yet the whole crux of the story is this lurid, drug tale and oral copulation.
But I don't think that's the shocking part. I think the shocking part is what they do to his parents and the cover-up. That's the horrifying part, to me.
Well, I think there's a little bit of that in there as well. But I mean, it's so off the radar. You can see why there's been a concerted effort to have his freedom of speech rights limited for it. And plus, he's been, he knows the legal process because he's spent time in prison. So he's been through the grill, so to speak.
I don't know if he's been in prison that long. We'll find out. But let's call Webster and see what he's thinking on this, okay?
Okay.
Okay, hang on.
That's a radio call?
Yeah.
Puerto Rico?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I guess it's still busy.
Yeah, he's probably yelling at somebody.
Okay, and speaking of oral copulation, someday the story will come out about Paula Gloria, Osama bin Laden, right? And all of the evil people who are seeking to destroy America make a beeline to Paula Gloria's apartment first. All right?
Yeah.
This is in the records of your three-letter agencies in Washington. They somehow always stop here first to see Paula for some nefarious reason before they go on to attack America with their filthy terrorism. Can you explain that, John?
Do you think that's what they're going to say about me someday?
Paula definitely is the fringe, and she invites a lot of the fringe to meet up with Paula Gloria. It does. Paula's like this, like two different streams or rivers, kind of dissecting, and there is that. You do see a lot of that. There is a lot of incendiary types. Eventually, Paula's got a good network for that. I was telling my dad about that yesterday. It's like she knows so many political fringe, types.
But you know something? Fringe is how I made $5 million. If I had an MBA, if I was educated properly, I never would have taken advantage of that opportunity. And that's why I was able to make a connection with Robert Ashford, who's, a very Ivy League scholarly type, Harvard business.
Did you do a show with Jim Fetzer?
I've done shows with Jim, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. You really have, you've been out there. Webster is more of a down home apple pie type. She's almost like a kind of motherly type figure. But I'm talking about like these real eccentric, Nietzschean types like Webster Tarpley.
He's Nietzschean.
Yeah, and then you've got Judy Reds. Have you ever crossed paths with her?
Yes, I've met Judy, and I've meant to have her on my show, but there seems to be so much controversy. I almost feel that sometimes I might do her more harm than good. I'm also careful with certain people because I want to make sure it's constructive for all parties, them included. Because, when they were doing that smear stuff that Larry said he was the victim of,
yeah.
The people who should be standing up for me saying my charity's not a fraud weren't doing it. So I had to sort of weather through that. But while I was weathering through it, I was learning a lot about, how information spreads around and things, because I know my charity was started 12 years ago. It's older than We Are Change and all the other groups. Interestingly enough, Luke Radowski left, he says he's Luke Radowski. He left me an email. So I am all for creating strategic connections of alliance. I think at all points we should shed our ego, our differences, and say, we've got some real problems here if a fascist state sets in, and anybody that has any inclination to be against fascism, we should work together. We should give it our best efforts. And
what's yours? Do you think Obama's the next fascist president?
Well, let me tell you what Norman Kurland said. Norman Kurland was born in Bridgeport, Connecticut, from a poor Jewish family. He had to grow up tough on the streets, and he got very well educated. I think he graduated from a Chicago law school, and he didn't marry a Jewish girl. So he always says, I don't care that much about Judaism, and, his kids weren't brought up that way. He married a Japanese internment camp person. She was the daughter of the wealthiest Japanese businessman in California. They threw them all in camps. And so I thought, Jew as eternal victim, he still is in the spirit of that, because she really, really supports his work and always has, all through their beautiful marriage of many years.
Can we point
He told, let me just quickly, and then you can take. He said his scenario was Barack Obama becomes president, Muslims are put into internment camps, and vigilantes go after Jews. And I'm saying the vigilantes going after the Jews is because they didn't allow 9/11 truth to fulfill itself. They didn't allow the investigation to go to its fullest end in a formal way, like at the church. It got cut off, and then as a result, people start whispering and thinking, oh, the Jews did it, but they don't really know who the Jews are. But they're, you know what I mean? It's not a good scene.
Can we point out that while all the liberals are crying about the Japanese internment on the West Coast, the scum never point out who was the top liberal? His name was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Okay, so they're always screaming, oh, the Nisei were thrown into prison camps. Oh, it was awful. Well, who was in charge? It was Roosevelt. Okay? Unless there's some other name you can come up with who secretly did it.
Well, I don't know. It's hard to put yourself. What do you think, John?
Well, I was asking George, what does he think about the prospects of, this Obama campaign leading up to some kind of fascist regime?
Well, what Webster thinks is after Barack Obama goes out, then so you take a little bit of Norman Kurland if that kind of thing happens, because Norman is pretty much official story on 9/11, but he pays attention because a good 9/11 researcher was paying attention to binary. So if people will just exert themselves and study, there can be a unity just through revealing what reality actually is. So what Webster was saying, he thinks Barack Obama, if he gets in office, will last about a year, and then they'll bring him down, whatever means,
Well, I don't think they're going to bring him down because of the birth certificate. That issue keeps getting squashed, and those
it's got to be part of
30 days since the 18th.
No, it's got to no, John. It's got to be like part of the script. So part of the script, what he's saying is the Ford Foundation and those liberal institutions are all funding Muslim things.
Oh,
but
yeah,
then,
they are.
But let me finish. But then, as that completes itself, that cycle, they're all funded, and then if he goes down, then everybody goes down with him, and then you bring in a very reactionary right fascist state. So Barack Obama is just a step. That's a
I always feel like this. I always had this conflict that I never saw Republicans as being fascistic or imperialistic. I don't know why. There's just something inside me that just sees more of the left calling them these things. But then I see the left being sort of like grassroots. I don't know. I don't know anymore. I just don't.
I don't think it makes any difference. That's why I said at the ACAP meeting, I said, I really don't like voting because it makes people fight over insignificant things. Neither of them have a platform.
To be honest with you, a lot of Republicans that I do know.
Why isn't McCain talking? Why isn't Barack Obama talking about McCain being involved in the SNL bailout, for example? They don't talk about it.
Saturday Night Live bailout?
Yeah. No, something
SNL.
else.
No, the big savings and loan debacle that happened. When did that happen?
No, I know savings are low, but yeah.
I posted this on the net. No one seems to pay any attention.
Yeah, these stories are being squashed.
Charles Keating is the figure behind that. But the way that Charles Keating made his bones had nothing to do with savings and loan. What he did was, as he was coming up through his early savings and loan, he's from Ohio, he got together a group of fanatics. They got sledgehammers, and they sledgehammered a Cincinnati porn theater. I'm not sure, but I hear rumors that the mayor of Cincinnati at the time was Jerry Springer, but I'm not sure. Anyway, he sledgehammered a theater while the Cincinnati cops just stood idly by and did nothing. And he said, you can't run this anti-Christian smut here. So his campaign was based on opposing Paula Gloria and beautiful blonde girls taking nude baths.
No, just a second. About the bath, I also showed my scoliosis and my hunchback because it's medical. I did it for medical reasons.
Hunchback?
Yes.
Okay.
I have 10 vertebrae fused and 2 metal rods put in my back, and I want to give hope to everybody. Like when I do the breast cancer stuff, I got saved from a biopsy, which creates more opportunity for fungus to come in, which is pretty much what cancer is. Not that that's easy to deal with. Fungus is tricky, but at least if you've identified the problem, you're ahead of the game. But for all those women who've had their breasts lopped off, I want to be able to show them, I've paid my dues too with 10 vertebrae fused and metal rods put in my back. So I showed that in the bathtub too. I want to say this wasn't all about the beautiful women we used to put on.
Well, can you imagine that Keating got his start not by saying anything about savings and loan and money, but by saying naked blonde girls are destroying Ohio?
Did he say that?
He said that. And he said, naked blonde girls being seen in the Cincinnati porn theater are destroying Ohio. And he got together a group of jolly fanatics, and they went down with sledgehammers, and they sledgehammered this theater. And they said, see, if we can get rid of this porn palace, everything will be okay here in Cincinnati.
But they got the Ku Klux Klan.
What does that have to do with porn?
Well, what I'm saying is they're willing to take it out on porn, but they won't do anything about real, true subversive.
Oh, you're not kidding.
John, that's the point. You can always condemn naked women.
Right, you can always be right, and it's anti-woman as well. It's an anti-woman.
No, it's just a cover-up. It has nothing to do with women. But it's saying to the good people of Southern Ohio, who are not too bright and tend to join a lot of fanatical groups, Jesus says that you should sledgehammer this theater and stop the patrons from seeing what they want to see. Jesus says that.
It's going back to Prohibition. There was like a women's group. They were like these religious
Women's Christian Temperance Union.
Yeah, those old ladies that with the black and the little granny glasses. They were the ones who got that Prohibition passed.
Right.
The little grannies, the little church ladies.
It's very powerful in the Midwest and in the Bible Belt.
Right, because it became a religious issue.
Right.
And alcohol was seen as the devil's, had a connotation with Satan.
Yeah, and the only place that organization could never create any excitement was Berkeley, California.
Why is that?
Because in Berkeley they said the evil is naked women, and the people of Berkeley would not go for that. They wouldn't fall for it.
Did you know a joke of
Right.
It's a formal wedding in Berkeley?
No.
A formal wedding in Berkeley is when the bride wears clothes.
Oh, okay. And the groom has 2 brown paper bags, okay?
But can you imagine if you get some high-def cameras on some bloody, drippy, smelly cancer, and then you show in a matter of days how it heals?
Yeah.
That is so exciting. Why are our medical institutions not doing this?
Big Pharma wouldn't like it, that's why.
Well, we can change that, I'm sure.
Okay, you know Big Pharma.
Yeah,
you know what
big
that means.
pharmaceuticals. Anything else? Should we try Webster one last time?
I have to leave in about 8 minutes.
Okay, let's try just one last time.
Yes, how are you?
How are things in Puerto Rico, you lucky fellow?
Yeah, hopefully you can come by here someday.
Puerto Rico.
Okay, so we have Webster
By the way,
Tarpley.
I love your book. I just started reading it.
Which one?
Both of them. I've got both.
Both Obama?
I got both of your volumes.
Thank you.
Okay, let me start the show because I'm rolling tapes.
Okay.
Hi, this is Paula Gloria, and this is another episode, Farther Down the Rabbit Hole. It's going to be a quick episode. I'm joined here on set with Ugly George. Thanks for joining me again on this.
And you know what I'm going to do?
What?
I'm going to move into Webster Tarpley's neighborhood and lower real estate values. Okay?
And we have Webster Tarpley on the line. Welcome, Webster.
Hello there.
And we also have John Gulino in Puerto Rico, and we've had a very successful show with John and Webster, which hopefully will be running as a special very soon on Manhattan Neighborhood Network. Now, Webster, we just had an excellent show with Larry Sinclair, and I was very, very pleased because my show is about healing, and I found that Larry had originally contacted the Obama campaign to say this is not true that Obama stopped using drugs at a certain date. And the reason he did it was he really believed in what Obama was saying about transparency. And what was more horrific than the story that he was telling, because John was talking about that, sort of the seediness of it, and Larry Sinclair was very forthright about saying that he did certain crimes and he paid his time, but that what was worse was how they were treating his family and anybody associated with the story. That was scarier. So I wondered, Webster, if you could speak to the issue of fascism.
Well, I would like to say, first of all, Larry Sinclair is a patriot of our time, and he has shown a tremendous courage in bringing forward these allegations against Obama. And of course, it's that in November 1999, he met Barach Hussein Obama, state senator in Illinois, for homosexual sex, and Obama consumed crack cocaine on both occasions. Now, that is a story that Larry Sinclair posted online in January of 2008, and he then came to the National Press Club in mid-June and gave a full, detailed account with about 100 journalists from all over the world in the room, about a dozen television cameras going on in the back. And as he was leaving that press conference, he was arrested on a fake warrant that had been prepared by Beau Biden, the dirty, corrupt, nepotistic son of Joe Biden, currently the Democratic presidential candidate. Beau Biden being the Attorney General of the state of Delaware. They threw him into the D.C. jail for the weekend. They then took him to Wilmington, Delaware, and threatened him with a life sentence. In other words, a life in prison, perpetual jail time, because of his criminal record left over from the 1980s. And it turned out that there was no new violation by Larry Sinclair, and that after threatening him with life imprisonment for basically for speaking out politically, they then dropped all the charges and let him go. So I think the idea that he was able to handcuff in that situation, I find to be an example of tremendous courage. Now let's get to the heart of what he's saying. Anybody who wants to get their hand on the thermonuclear button, we have a right to know everything about them. There's no such thing as privacy for a presidential candidate. Because if you want to get your hand on the thermonuclear button, you're asking to control nuclear ICBMs that will then lead to an exchange that will destroy the privacy of my family and destroy my life and my family and everything. So anybody who wants this, we've got to raise the bar and say, we want to know everything about you. Look at George Bush, the current tenant of the White House. His cocaine impairment. Why didn't we know more about that? His alcoholism, his cowardice, his draft dodging, his cocaine impairment. We want to know all of those things, and now we want to know them about Obama and, of course, about McCain as well. McCain, I think we know significantly more. We don't know as much as we should, but we know significantly more about McCain than we do about Obama. If Obama is engaging in crack cocaine and encounters of this type in November of 1999, this is an extremely relevant fact. There's also the question that Larry Sinclair talks about, that he was contacted by a young gay man, a black gay parishioner of Reverend Jeremiah Wright. As a matter of fact, the choir master of Wright's church, the Trinity United Church of Christ, Donald Young, who contacted him in the manner of a campaign operative to try to sift him out. In other words, in the Clinton campaign, they had people who were in charge of bimbo eruptions, as it was called then. Women coming forward with stories about Clinton. In the case of the Obama campaign, they had, at least during 2007, Donald Young, who was in charge of investigating people who had encountered Obama in the past and who might come forward with stories of the type that Larry Sinclair is now telling. This same guy, though, Donald Young, was found dead of multiple gunshot wounds just before Christmas last year, 2007, right in the middle of the presidential campaign, 3 weeks before the Ohio caucus. The choir master of Jeremiah Wright's church is found riddled with bullets. And this is not a matter for the national media. Well, it means that there is a monstrous array of possible secrets about Obama that we just don't know about. And therefore, I think what Larry Sinclair has done is to perform a tremendously important public service. He's doing this at great risk to himself. He doesn't stand to make any money. He, of course, has been vilified. There are websites that are completely devoted to vilifying him and attacking him and what have you. And I think that this is what patriotism looks like in the year 2008. So I think it's admirable what he's done.
Webster, can you talk about About fascism?
Yeah, fascism, of course, is simply this. You have to understand, fascism is not what most people think. Most people in the United States today think fascism is when you have a dictatorship or a police state, something like Bush, Cheney, and the neocons, and they have the Patriot Act, and they come after you, and they tap your phone, and they read your mail, and they oppress you, and they have wars, and they're racists, and so forth. This does not fill the bill as a definition of fascism, because fascism is always based on something more. It's not a top-down phenomenon. It is a mass movement, or at least something that looks very much like a mass movement. It's something that comes up out of the streets, indeed out of the gutters. It is, of course, controlled by bankers, controlled by intelligence agencies, but that's not what it looks like. It looks like a movement which is a movement of national renewal, of anti-establishment, radical people with left cover and anti-right-wing cover. In other words, the Obama campaign, they have a term for this, right? They're not really a grassroots phenomenon. They're an astroturf phenomenon. In other words, it looks like grassroots, but it's really completely artificial. They, of course, follow the cookbook of the postmodern coup, the people power coup that has been elaborated by the CIA in Ukraine in 2004 with the Orange Revolution or the Roses Revolution in Tiflis. But the idea is that fascism is goons, thugs, hooligans, combining with gutter snipes, fervently idealistic students, young people. Both fascism and Nazism were very strongly based in the universities with students and with the intellectuals, the professors in the universities, very strongly pro-Mussolini and later pro-Hitler. You have radical trade unionists of a certain type are gravitating to these movements. You have disgruntled war veterans. You have artists, writers, architects, sculptors, the creative class. In Italy, they were all fascists, at least the leading ones. And leftists. Look, Mussolini was not a leftist. Mussolini was a revolutionary socialist so famous that Lenin praised him from afar as the greatest force for the revolution in Italy. Of course, Mussolini was an agent of the Italian banks as well as the British and French embassies. But this idea that you create a movement like that allows you to carry out oppressive measures with political cover that the police and the FBI and so forth would never have. The question for a ruling elite concerning fascism comes in the following moment. When you have an economic breakdown crisis, military defeat, that was pretty much the situation for many countries in the 1920s and 30s, you get to a point where the police and the secret police are not enough to maintain the subjection of the population. If you send in the army, you don't know what's going to happen because the army can just as easily go over to the demonstrators, right? What happened in Russia in 1917. So, what do? What you've got to do is to organize a demagogic, artificial movement with hyper-revolutionary and pseudo-revolutionary slogans like change, hope, and all the rest of this stuff, so that you organize the population to police itself. And this is done, again, under left cover, radical cover. Naomi Wolf writes about fascism. Her analysis is absolutely bankrupt because she leaves out the most important thing, the mass movement. Similarly, there's Jonah Goldberg. He's even crazier. He writes about liberal fascism. He says anytime you have a government that interferes in economics, that's fascism. This is obviously crazy. There's a whole cottage industry of people who are interested in muddying the waters and confusing the idea of what fascism is. And in today's world, Bush and Cheney are not fascists. At least you can say that they're fascists as individuals, but the main thing that we have to look at, they don't have a fascist mass movement. They don't. Who does have a movement of fanatics, Kool-Aid drinkers, personality cultists, fervently idealistic students, and so forth? Well, the one who comes closest to that is clearly Obama, and that is why this is such a disturbing trend to have a personality cult which is based not on issues or on a program of government, but on the adulation of a person, a messianic, utopian individual. This is how Mussolini was seen by many between 1919 and 1922.
This has been great.
John, do you have anything to say?
Well, Webster hits all the right spots there. I mean, it's pretty much clear.
Speak up.
He does fit, Obama does fit a classic framework of fascism. He has certain earmarks within his campaign, and Webster articulates it perfectly. The messianic, the banks, it's all there, and you can see it. It's a lot of people are not aware of it, but thanks to Webster, we actually can see this.
Thank you. Let me just add, there's also the question about is the Duce a foreigner? That's an issue for the German side of this stuff, right? Right now, Phil Berg went to the Supreme Court here in Washington, D.C. on Thursday afternoon, the 30th of October, and filed an emergency motion with Justice David Souter to stop the presidential election unless and until Obama produces a birth certificate.
He has 30 days to comply.
No, it depends. This is now the Supreme Court, unless you have news that I don't have yet.
Well, I just saw something that came off the news on the 18th, and that the judge said that the...
No, this is now the Supreme Court as of yesterday afternoon. That is to say,
okay, this is a new
the afternoon of Thursday the 30th. This is now the Supreme Court. Berg has also gone to the 3rd U.S. Federal Circuit Court of Appeals in Philadelphia, but then he went immediately to the Supreme Court. I covered this yesterday. He gave a press conference in front of the court, and what they're asking is Souter either stop the election or, injunctive relief and certiorari, meaning Obama has to produce his detailed birth certificate, not a certificate of live birth, but the vault copy of his birth certificate with the details of where he was born, the time, the physician, the mother, the father, their address, all these details. This is something that you haven't seen, and this is what you need to get a passport. If you want a passport, you can't come with a certificate of live birth. You've got to have the vault copy.
Doesn't he have a time limit? Doesn't he have a certain amount of time?
The election is next Tuesday, so that's the time.
So it's even shorter than that.
Oh, it's simple. If I told you need to get your birth certificate, I bet you could get it by Monday, couldn't you?
Right, but you would give me like 30 days, so to speak. I thought that was the original.
Well, if there's an overwhelming state interest in this, which there is in this case, we have the right to demand to know if the candidate Obama is a natural-born citizen of the United States. Number one, were you born in a U.S. territory, state, possession, military base, ship?
Webster, talk about why it's important to uphold the Constitution. If we sort of waive that, because the idealistic people say, oh, well, so what, who cares? It's about time we get somebody from another country.
What's the objection to Bush and Cheney? One of my big objections, and one of the reasons I've been fighting Bush and Cheney, is because they trampled on the Constitution. You got to remember, look at American history. You have a clear choice. Either you have the Constitution or you have anarchy, possibly leading to civil war. And that's one of the terrible things that the Bush-Cheney neocon regime has done to this society, that the Constitution has been violated so systematically, so flagrantly, so blatantly. Now we have the amazing spectacle of left liberals saying, oh, this is just a legalism. Who cares where he was born? You can be a foreigner. You can be a Kenyan who's become an Indonesian. We don't care about this. This is absolutely crazy. Once you begin to attrit the Constitution in that way, the constitutional protections, things like free speech and right to have a lawyer and freedom from unreasonable searches and seizures, they also go by the boards.
1 minute.
The other political thing that I would say is, you want to get your hands on the thermonuclear button, we get to know everything about you, starting with where you are born. We don't need Jimmy Who, and we don't need Barkey Who from who knows where. We need to know everything about these candidates, and of course the controlled Wall Street media have been just abysmal in carrying that out.
John?
Yeah, I was going to say also, what do you think about, there's this proposal somewhere on the horizon with Obama wanting to naturalize some of the illegal immigrants here in this country, put them on some kind of fast track.
Well, this is a legitimate political question. Now, the thing about this is it should be done according to law, and you can do things according to law. You can either have an amnesty or you can not have an amnesty. Let's leave that to be debated and discussed in the next Congress, when I'm sure that it will be.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. This has been an episode of Farther Down the Rabbit Hole. We've had Webster Tarpley commenting on Larry Sinclair talking about the sex and drug use of Barack Obama in the hopes that he would be transparent, and he was very disappointed. And Webster explained to us that fascism is not necessarily what we think it is. Thank you.
Precisely. And Berg is doing the same thing. He's trying to get transparency on just a simple fact. Where were you born, Obama?
So thank you. And thank you, John, too. John Gulino was in master control during 9/11. Thanks, guys.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.